Welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here. And ladies and gentlemen, round one, all 9 games have come. They have gone. We have to sit down and talk about it. The footy season is fully back now, as every single club in the AFL has had a game. We have wins, we have losses, we have discussions to do. We've seen the rules, we've seen all this go on. Let's have a chat. Joining me from snowy Cincinnati. This is going to be fun on this one because I had the snow yesterday. He has the snow today, but you want to know what? We're still going to talk the footy. Hey Kyle, it is great to have you on the podcast. How are things going for you? And I see that you are rocking your son stuff very, very with gusto.
I'm doing well overall. It was 70 yesterday. It'll be 70 in a couple of days. But for all the Australian listeners, this is the time of year that you should be thankful that you live in Australia and not in the Midwest of the United States. So I don't know. It's 30 something in freedom units. So I guess that's like 0 in Celsius or something like that. So
Right around. It's pretty close. Yeah, it's the fun of Midwest life, as I say. At least, especially in here in Iowa, that Mother Nature's bipolar. She can never make up her mind and always changing it whenever it comes to it. So, but well, let's stop talking about the weather over here in the States. Let's get to why we are here. We are here to talk round one and to go through all of the happenings, the results, how things went on, and talk a few other things. So let's hop right into it, Kyle. Your thoughts as a whole of this first time, 9 games, round one.
well, it was definitely high scoring. Some pretty dominant wins. I'd say Sydney, Gold Coast, and the Western Bulldogs looking very sharp. Solid crowds. And I would also say that there were definitely some big movers, some players that really stood out. Petraka, the Suns, played phenomenal. It's amazing to see him in the new jumper, and he's just dominating out there in the midfield. Him and Matty Rao together on that team is just going to be incredible to watch this year.
Yeah, it's kind of scary to think that Jamara Ogle-Hagan is still sitting in the wings. Yeah, as you said, Matty Rouse still to come back. It's a scary, and Jed Walter still hasn't played a home and away game either, though the Suns have played 2 games. So it's going to be fun to watch it. But we will discuss the Suns a little bit more a little bit later. Let's hop right into it. We will start off round one, Thursday night footy, the old rivalry to start off the footy season normally. Again, round zero has thrown a spanner in the works on that one, as we have the Carlton Blues edge out the Richmond Tigers by 4, 75-71. And the storyline for me, Kyle, on this is, again, Carlton starts off well, has a really good first half. And the second half, they were holding on for dear life as this young up and start whippersnapper Richmond Tigers team come roaring back, pardon the pun there, but just fall short at the end. And the Blues, Michael Voss, can take a deep breath. He's okay. He got the win, but boy, was that second half really, really close to potentially being an epic disaster in Blues land.
Well, it's definitely a long season. And if you try to play not to lose at the end of the first half, it's not probably going to be your best season. But nevertheless, a win is a win. Carlton definitely got it by 4 points, albeit. It does take me back kind of to similar matchup about a year ago where you saw a little bit of similar. Obviously, it was far less scoring last year, but yeah, I would say Carlton really needed to take some things away from this, including not taking the foot off the gas. Yeah, and from Richmond's standpoint, hey, rebuild team showed a lot of resilience, didn't give up. A lot of things to like and a lot of things to take away from that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I think the questions are going to continue again. Michael Voss, he'll get a little bit of a reprieve. He gets the 4 points, but far from impressive. And also, the questions of the second half fade outs, they're going to stay until Carlton can hold on an entire game or play a 4 quarter game. It'll be fascinating to see how the Baggers back up this upcoming round on this one. Let's jump to it. The Friday night footy game sees an absolute butt whooping as the Hawks smash the Bombers 145-83. And it's really rough when we keep having to be subjected to a team that I don't know if they were prepared or not. I don't know. Again, I know Hawthorne is good. I know Hawthorne was angry coming off of a loss to GWS in round zero, but this Essendon Bombers team looks like a rabble. And I thoroughly worry that we've got two teams at the bottom of the ladder with Essendon and a team we'll discuss here in a little bit that right now are playing to potentially be teams that they'll be lucky if they get a win if they keep serving up this type of footy.
Yeah, 21 goals is quite the offensive explosion there. In terms of Essendon's defense, I mean, it was exposed early, and really they didn't make a lot of halftime adjustments, at least that I saw, to address the onslaught. But I think if you look at Hawthorne's midfield, that was where a lot of the dominance stemmed from. When you dominate the midfield, you pretty much dominate the game. From Essendon's side, everything just seemed kind of disjointed. There was a lot of pre-hype from beginning of the season, and I think a lot of it's just shot now because they just don't seem to have the firepower, especially in the midfield, to have a lot of those offensive opportunities.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. They're almost offensive merchants a little bit. They almost get ahead of the footy, and it really exposed their back line. So Coach Scott has got a lot of things to work on for round two and going forward because if that's any indication on this year's season, it could be a long time in Bomberland when it comes to this particular season for the Bombers there. Let's move on to Marvel Stadium as we saw the Saturday afternoon game as the Western Bulldogs said, "Hold my beer. We're gonna one up the Hawks," and we smashed the Giants 134-53, an 81-point win by the Doggies. I will give the Giants a few extra outs. They're still undermanned severely. Again, they've had some injuries through this team. Again, no Tom Green, Sam Taylor's still out with injury. They fought a little bit, but man, are the Doggies looking absolutely cherry ripe right now. And the defense is looking a little bit better. Again, we'll have to see. They still haven't paid the cream of the crop. They get the win over Brisbane. That's fantastic. But there's still some really good teams still to play. But the Doggies have started off this season absolutely magnificently.
Well, I really hope that GWS had an insurance policy with Amy because that was an absolute catastrophe that they just went through. Yeah, 81
Uh,
points. What more is there to say? Complete struggles, top to bottom, all game for GWS. And I think between the Hawks and the Western Bulldogs, who may already kind of see two of the teams that are really going to be finals competitive. Obviously, it's still early in the season to say, but those are the two teams that, as well as my Suns as well, and a little bit the Swans, I'd say there's definitely a few teams coming out early this year that really seem to have it all put together.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see again. I've seen seasons before that start off strong and fade towards the end. I know there was a season North Melbourne went 10-0 to start the year and then would finish the season 2-6 in the last 8 games of the season in the last 8 games of the season. So everything is still to change again. If you're the Doggies, you got 8 points in the bank. You're feeling really good about it. You've beaten two teams that a lot of people expected to be towards the top part of the ladder. So we'll have to see again. But another magnificent win for the Doggies on that one. We'll travel down the highway from Melbourne down to Geelong and GMHBA Stadium as the Cats get a win over the Dockers by 10, 110-100. But this is one of those the Dockers got to be kicking themselves because they came down and they were lit on fire with anger and shot out of a cannon against the Cats. But the Cats, the steadiness that is the Cats, find a way, despite some of the injuries that they're fighting with as well, get the 10-point win. Welcome back Jeremy Cameron and Patrick Dangerfield. Definitely helped them out. But the Dockers, they got to be kicking themselves because a big lead and they let it slip away, and the Cats get another win down at the Cattery.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Patrick Dangerfield and Jeremy Cameron both came out, looked excellent. In terms of the game overall, I'd basically say that it was the Cats' experience versus the Dockers' youth, with the experience just barely pulling out the 10-point win. And yeah, overall, I think it was a really good tight and contested match. Better than the
100%.
two previous.
Unfortunately, there was some intrigue to this one. Unfortunately, there was a little less intrigue at the SCG as the Swans get an impressive 44-point win over the defending champs, the Brisbane Lions, 104 to 60, making the Brisbane Lions now 0-2 to start off the season. But a lot of discussion is going to be when it comes to it for this Swans team is the fact is they have looked absolutely magnificent in both their games. But at the end of this game, there's a little bit of downtroddenness as it sounds like Errol Goulden will go in for surgery and will be out for at least 4 months. And most likely they will also be without Isaac Heaney this particular Thursday night as they take on the Hawks as a hamstring awareness that puts two of Sydney Swan's stars on the sidelines for a little bit of time. So as a Swan supporter, fantastic when they get the 4 points, but it comes with devastating consequences as Errol Goulden now out most likely until August, and Isaac Heaney looking like it could be at least a couple of rounds on the bench, sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah, for anyone in Australia, I'd kind of put this akin to the NFL when there's a team that plays on Sunday and then they have to have that quick turnaround to Thursday. Except for Sydney, it's even a little bit crazier than that because they play the opening round. So now they have then round one, and then they're going to have to be ready to go for Thursday night. So quite back to back to back there. And as you can see, their players are already starting to feel the physical effects of that. I'd say the other really crazy thing about the game is Brisbane's now 0-2 despite being back-to-back champions. It's definitely a surprising start. Obviously, it's still very early. They've stayed fairly competitive in the games that they've played, but it is definitely surprising. As a Gold Coast Suns fan, I'm not going to complain, but nevertheless, it's a little bit surprising to say the least.
This Lions team, I will say this again. There was some injury, there's some injury and suspension that really hurt him. I mean, McCluggage going out with his calf injury early in that Doggies game didn't help. Harris Andrew, Darcy Gardner, and Zach Bailey all suspended for this particular game as well. So having four elite level players from a really good Lions roster out for this game against Sydney, so there's some built-in excuse, as some would say. Again, this Brisbane Lions list is very, very good. The performance that they put up says less about who was missing and more about what the ones that were on the pitch didn't were on the field did not do. So again, Swan's fantastic. Again, I'm hoping we'll all cross our fingers. You never want to see anybody injured. Hopefully for quick recoveries for both Heaney and Goulden because again, the first two games, they looked magnificent, and the Swans looked cherry ripe to start the season. But a long year, couple injuries. We'll have to see how does the list depth. And last year, we saw Errol Goulden not being in the roster struggles for the Swans without their diminutive superstar. Let's go over down to the MCG where a shocker to start off to end the Saturday slate as the Adelaide Crows go into the MCG and knock off the mighty Collingwood Magpies by 14, 93-79. Despite Josh Dacos and Nick Dacos both playing fantastic, the Crows find a way to get a huge win on the road in Victoria.
Yeah, Adelaide breaks MCG curse. And I would say the biggest thing to take away from this is Collingwood is probably kicking themselves due to the lack of forwards that they signed in the offseason. Whereas I'd say for the Crows, hey, could be their year. They've looked
Mhm.
pretty good. I think they could definitely be in the running as well come the end of the year for the finals.
The scary part is they still don't have Isaac Rankin back yet, and they started off they got that win over Collingwood without one of their better players in the roster. I'm going to go off. I completely agree. Is I know that it's been a big discussion point is the fact that that Collingwood did let go of two quality forwards, whether they're elite. I won't go that far, but Myercheck and Cox both leaving the club, bringing in a young Jack Buller from Sydney who showed some flashes, but when it wasn't always consistent. And right now, they're ruining that decision as they don't have a talisman. They do not have a spearhead up forward. This could be a long season for the Maggies if they cannot figure this out. Again, I think Fly will be sitting up many a night over the next few weeks trying to see if he can get this figured out. We'll have to see. Again, there's so much talent in this Collingwood Magpies team. I will I don't want to forget this. The fact that Scott Pendlebury was cited and is potentially going to have his first ever suspension, though being in the league as long as he has is pretty impressive. Sucks that he's going to get suspended, that he potentially could miss a game. I know several I've listened to it through the media think there's a potential that he could get off due to the good bloke credit. We'll have to see how that goes. But it was fascinating. Oh my gosh, Scott Pendlebury was cited for a suspension, so it'll be interesting to see how the tribunal how that goes through when it goes through the tribunal here as the week goes on. We'll now shift from the MCG over to Marvel Stadium where we see the North Melbourne Kangaroos hold the phone, ladies and gentlemen. The North Melbourne Kangaroos get a win as they knock off Port Adelaide 113-67. I'm sorry, North fans, but I gotta be a little bit facetious here. Oh my God, North won. Oh my God, North won.
Yeah, sounds like a superhero movie. Anything's possible, I guess. North Melbourne winning a game. Um, but yeah, I mean, dominant 46-point win, big step forward. You know, take the mascot for GWS on this one because it's going to take quite a few giant leaps for North Melbourne to step forward back into the relevance in the comp. But overall, good win for them. Looking at Port, I mean, I think their offseason changes just they're not clicking yet.
Yeah, we'll have to see. New coaching. Sometimes we'll have to see how that goes. Again, there might be some tiny philosophy changes. They've had some injury issues. They've had some injury issues as well. So it'll be fascinating. I'm happy for the North faithful because they've had to deal with so many years of being underperforming or not playing as well. It was great to see them get up and about, seeing some youngsters that they signed through the late signing period play well on the roster. Are they going to make finals? I'm not going to sit here and hold my breath on that one because I'm going to pass out very quickly if I even try. So I'm not going to. Again, I'm happy for the North Faithful because they have dealt with so much crap, especially on the men's side, that I really want them to have some success. And starting off the season is fantastic. But I won't even lie. The next one is just as good as brand new coach, Coach King takes over the Melbourne Demons and they get a win over St. Kilda 120 to 107. This young, revamped Melbourne Demons side looked pretty good. And unfortunately, St. Kilda trying to play the LA Dodgers and New York Yankees baseball team, trying to spend their way to a premiership right now is not bearing much fruit.
Well, I will say this it was definitely a high scoring matchup and it was actually competitive. So that's always a positive. Jacob Van Ruyen, 6 goals. And I think, yeah, the new look D's under Stephen King, definitely sight for tired eyes based on the past few years for Melbourne. But yeah, Saints played all right. But like you said, it's proof that money doesn't buy everything.
hmm It'll be interesting to see can they get the ship righted for St. Kilda because right now with the big money that they spent re-signing Naz, bringing into Conning, bringing in some of the free agents that they did, we'll have to see how it goes because right now it's not starting off too fruitful, which is very interesting. And then for my co-host, the big old grin upon his face as his beloved Gold Coast Suns go out west and put a whooping on the West Coast Eagles 131-72. And as he said earlier, Christian Petrarca again another magnificent showing. Hard not to argue that he's played 2 games in the Gold Coast Sun colors, and he might have 6 Brownlow votes come the Brownlow night because he has been absolutely sensational.
Do. Yeah, 59-point win. What more can you say? The entire first half. And listen, let's be fair. West Coast is probably not the best team in the competition. And they did in the second half come back some. I'll be honest. I turned it on at 3 in the morning my time. Went to bed at like 4:30 in the morning. So I woke up the second half. I'm like, please to God, please make sure there wasn't the biggest implosion of my life. And sure enough, Gold Coast held on. But yeah, especially in that first half, it was incredible. The West Coast Eagles throughout much of the first half, they could not get the ball out of their half of the field. Every time they'd make a goal kick, anytime they kick out a defensive end, the midfield would just snatch the ball and kick it right back. And it's really difficult to put points on the board when the ball isn't in the forward third. So yeah, overall, just amazing play from amazing game from Gold Coast Suns. And I'll tell you what, they made it to the grand finals. The finals in general this past year, and I think they really could be a contender to win a premiership this year.
That's definitely going to be interesting again. Long season still to come, a lot of games to go, but you've seen some a big push behind the Gold Coast Suns when it comes to the flag favorite. It'd be fascinating to see how it goes. So that is it. That is all 9 games for this particular round, and in prototypical fashion for the podcast, we jump to the burning questions. I got to ask you this, sir. We'll start off with this. There was a lot of discussion over this offseason because there were several rule changes and several that were quite significant when it comes to changing the mode of play and how things are going. So I'll ask this of you, Kyle. Have you enjoyed the footy this year with some of these new rule changes?
I got to be honest, if I was not made aware of these rule changes, I wouldn't have noticed them that much because they just haven't had that big of an impact, a
Mhm.
little here and there. But it's supposed to be speeding up the speed at which the game plays. Which, listen, if we're talking about baseball, like the pitch clock, I totally get it. But I've never once watched an Aussie rules football game and said, "Man, this is slow. They really need to speed this up." Nevertheless, I don't think there's a lot of issues with the decisions they've made with the rule changes. I like the jumping rucks. I think that's nice that they've kind of brought that back into the game. A little bit confused about the technical aspects of the in between the 50 meters and the ball goes out, say our team's ball, because there's some rule I'm a little confused about because there are times where the ball will go out from
Mhm.
one player, but they're still throwing it in for a boundary throw in
Gotcha.
even if
Yeah,
it's in the middle. So, and I think,
I can explain it to you because
yeah,
so
please do.
what the rule is, it's the lasso rule, and basically what it is a disposal of of any kind, and that's where I think there's a little bit of gray area, but I actually don't mind how they've explained why. But basically, if somebody kicks the ball towards the sidelines and it goes out of play and is not touched in any other way besides that disposal, it is basically like um insufficient intent that we've heard so many times before. Is it basically insufficient attempt is basically always in play unless, say, you kick it down the sideline, somebody spoils it out of play, then it's a throw in. But say I'm running with a teammate and I handball it and I make the mistake of hitting it too damn hard. I hit it over his head and it goes out of play. Now that is a free kick to the other team because it's basically like out of bounds for us, our American sports. It's a turnover in basketball. It goes to the other team, not the team that last touched the ball. So that's kind of how the lasso rule. It gets a little hairy at times because you'll see sometimes when the ball is deflected, like somebody somebody throws hits a handball and it hits the ground and it bounces off somebody's shin below their knee or off their foot and then goes out of bounds or bounces out of play. Technically, because they kind of classify it like with goals, you can kick a goal and not intend to do it if it deflects off your like below your knee. So that's how they're kind of saying that when it comes like deflections, when it comes to off the boot, out of play, that's the only time that it's not like a direct disposal like we're so used to. Like I intentionally kick it and it goes out of play, or I intentionally handball it. The deflection some does actually count because they kind of take it like the like with going on goal. So that's why it's a little confusing because a lot of people are like, it's a last touch. No, it's not last touch. It's not one of those like American sports over here where if I'm near the boundary and I touch it with my hand to try to keep it in play and it goes out of bounds, it's not a turnover because I did not dispose of it. I didn't do a disposal and then it went out of play. So then it is a throw in. But if I grab it, possess it, handball it to a teammate, miss that teammate wildly, and it bundles over the line, now it is a last to last disposal, and now the other team gets the free kick. Does that make sense?
It does overall. I feel like I've still seen a couple times though where they did the 50-meter, even though no player, like it was a kick, ball bounced on the ground, it kind of rolled out when two players were going after it, and they still
Yep.
called it 50-meter. What I'm wondering is if a player is getting blocked or shepherd kind of like interfered with to get to the ball, does that still count, or would that be considered a turnover?
I again, it depends. You can it's a lot like with basketball over here. You can shepherd a ball out of play. So that's perfectly fine. In my personal opinion, I think there should be caveats to where if a player can play the ball, like it was, I'd seen it occasionally sometimes with the insufficient attempt before they changed this rule, is guys would kick it towards a contest out of like towards the sideline, and it would be intentional that that's where they're going.
It's for territory.
And the other team would have a chance to possess it and they go nope and they let it go out of play. For me, that negates that, and that should then be a throw in because you had a chance to play it and you just didn't because you knew it would be a free kick for you. So I think that should then negate it because you had a chance to keep the ball in play so there wasn't a stoppage and you didn't do that. I know it's over analyzing it a tiny bit, but for me personally, I think if there's a possibility of you possessing the ball, if a player clearly has the opportunity to possess the ball and don't let it go out of play to get the free kick, then I think it should negate it. Personally, that's me. But again, it doesn't matter. Like if I kick the ball from 50 meters away and it bounces 20 meters and then goes out of play, it's still a lasso because it hasn't been touched. So
Mhm.
again, it's there's going to be some headaches. It there's less free kicks. The ball movement is faster. The scoring is up. Again, as I said off mic, the coaches will ring the scoring in. They do it every year. So I'm not even the people that are saying, "Look at the scoring, how fantastic." I know by the time we hit middle of May and April, these coaches, like April and middle May, these coaches will ring the scoring in. They will because that's their job. They need to win footy games, and slowing down the other team from scoring is what they're going to figure. They're going to eventually figure it out. So I know the scoring is going to go down. So I'm not really going to worry about that. I like it. I like this new rule because it now forces teams to stop just playing it down the line because they know if we overkick a contest and it goes out of play, well, that's coming right back down our throats. So it'll be interesting to see how many more teams try to stay a little bit more corridor for the games to avoid the turnover. So it'll definitely be interesting for me. But I've liked the rule changes. I think they've been good. There's still a little bit of anonymity when it comes to the jumping ruck or stepping over the line rule. There's still a few miscommunications on what counts and what doesn't. And
Mhm.
again, refereeing is subjective, so sometimes what somebody thinks isn't to somebody else. So it's gonna happen. We'll get used to it. It won't be much of a change. The ball up instead of the first bounce, I think, has been good because I hate recalls because it just slows the game down. So I like that we're just whoop, up, let's go. We're just
Yep.
right in. There's no recall, no nothing like that. I know it takes away from everybody, the traditionalists that are like, well, now we can't say first bounce to start the game because there is no bounce. That's fine. It's one grammatical term. It's not really that big a deal, but
You don't
I
bounce
digress.
basketball at the start of NBA games.
I
Oh,
know. So it's fine. But again, I understand the tradition. I understand some of the traditionalists, but well, we won't go into that particular argument. So we'll move on. I don't usually like talking about this, but we'll go into it only because, again, the media sometimes will really harp on this. So there have been a few teams that have struggled to start this year. Again, I know many teams have only played one or two games, so there's a small sample size. So freaking out about it, I think, is a little premature. So for you, Kyle, what team currently under some struggles do you think is in the worst possible, is in the worst shape right now?
West Coast, pretty easy. I mean, they were not good last year, and it does not look like they have made a lot of progress in the offseason to become better. Obviously, they showed a little bit of heart in the second half against Gold Coast, but I don't know. To me, West Coast is in the same position that Richmond was a couple years ago.
Hmm.
I think they can definitely turn it around, but if they can win more than 5 or 6 games this year, I would
Hmm.
consider that a huge win for West Coast. But yeah, for now, I'd say they would be the team I would put as the biggest. Yeah,
In the worst
most
shape.
worst shape, most depressing to be a fan of.
Yeah,
Pick your
no,
name.
I 100%, I 100% agree. I'm going to add a second one, but I'm going to caveat it again. They have only played again. Both those teams have only played one game. We don't know. Maybe just the matchups were bad. But the team that I'm the most frightened for is Essendon because they've had an entire offseason to change kind of the mantra of the club or what we saw so many times. And again, last year they were riddled with injury. So many defenders were hurt. So many players went down. Still, some players are still out. Nick Martin is still out with his knee injury that he has. We will not even see him this year because unfortunately his ACL injury was late enough into the year. I highly doubt that he will be back this season. But for me, it's Essendon because they had an entire off season to get their proverbial crap together. And they looked absolutely atrocious defensively. They've got so many good talents on that roster. They should not be as bad as they played. I'm a little worried about the Dons. I knew West Coast. There's still so much growing pains that this team has to do because they're still trying to rapid pace a group that held on to a premiership too long, and they're paying for it. And we'll have to see again. I want Coach McWalter to be able to. I want him to do well, but right now there's not much he can do when the group that he's got is just not gelling the way he wants, and it's very very frustrating. Totally understand the frustration in Western Australia when it comes to the West Coast Eagles because this has been a very good club for a long time, and they're one of the richest clubs in the entire competition. And there's not much that they can do. They can't go like Major League Baseball up here and spend their way into relevance. They can't do it. The salary cap and everything like that. And right now, there's not much that they can do. They're trying, they're throwing everything at the wall, hoping it sticks. Right now, the list is just not built well. We'll have to see. I'm crossing my fingers that they improve, they get better. Same thing with Essendon, but neither team looked really good. Again, only round one, hoping, crossing my fingers, touching wood, and all that stuff that I'm wrong. But this could be a very long season for both West Coast and Essendon if round one was any indication on how this year is going to go. So I always like to ask a fun question of my co-host, especially when they are a fan of a club. So I will let Kyle have his moment to talk about his beloved Suns. So as the Suns fan that you are, sir, how excited are you with your club's impressive two performances to start the season?
It's pretty amazing. Been a fan since 2020 when I started watching the AFL when COVID was, at its height. Yeah, I think I got on the bandwagon at the right time. Wouldn't say it was bandwagon back then, but it's definitely pretty amazing to see how well this club has really been able to draft and develop players and do the right things. Fortunately, I'd say fan support still hasn't quite been there. You see the game, recently, the opening round, and there was quite a few fans that just weren't in attendance. I'd say the West Coast game was in Gold Coast. Well, yeah, it's um, just not the support that you would want to see. So, hey, I'll make this as my pitch to any Gold Coast Suns fan listening. I'm in Cincinnati. I can't go support the club. You can, and trust me. Like I know a relocation isn't as common in Australia as it is in America. And luckily, it's Cincinnati, and the only team that ever relocated was the Cincinnati Royals back in the '70s. But like, it's always on the table, and it's always a possibility. You had excuses to not support this club back when they were a bad team. Now They're one of the best teams in the competition. Go out there and support the boys.
Hmm.
Do it for me. I can't do it, but you can. So go out there and support your club.
So I'm not the only one that's ever called on the Australians to go because I'm too far away. I love it. No, I'm 100% with you. I mean, the academy players that they have produced have been absolutely insane. It's going to be fun to watch them all grow up. It's also fun to watch the Victorian fans absolutely lose their proverbial shit, as every time that a Gold Coast Suns produces a top 10 level player and is able to get that particular player into the system. But my perfect retort is for all those young Victorians that are being drafted, the argument that they'll want to come home eventually basically is always interesting. So, but I digress. We will not go there. So that is it for burning questions. We jump to my favorite part, ladies and gentlemen. It is back again this year, and that is Coach Hess's Team of the Week. So, Kyle, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to quickly run through some of the fantastic performances of this week. I put together we start off on defense again with my coaching background. We got to start on defense. We'll start in the fullback line where we have Jack Henry of the Geelong Cats, Charlie Comben of the North Melbourne Kangaroos, and the stellar defender Cal Wilkie of the St. Kilda Saints. Along the halfback line, we have Jaden Short of the Richmond Tigers, Sydney Swans, Nick Blakey, and Collingwood. He's finally come to the party, Dan Houston. Thank you, Dan Houston, for coming back to normal Dan Houston light type of ways. Since then, fantastic to see that he's finally got his stuff figured out as he is with the Collingwood Magpies. On the wings, Nick Dacos. I wanted to put him in the center, but I thought you know what, we'll sneak him in on the wing because he played a little bit more wing in this particular game. And the West Coast Mylan Murdoch had a fantastic game on that. And for some weird reason, I did not write down the three that I had through the center midfield. If I remember correctly off the list that I just did, this is off the top of my head, ladies and gentlemen. So do not quote me on this. I know Marcus Bontempelli, Justin McInerney, and then I believe the last one was either Finn Callahan. I can't remember. I apologize. I will move on that. I'll try to do a post to remember my last one, but for some odd reason in my notes, it is not here. So I apologize. We'll jump to the ruck. The ruck, Luke Jackson of the Fremantle Dockers. Along the half forward line, we have the man, the myth, the legend that is Christian Petrarca of the Gold Coast Suns, Aaron Naughton of the Western Bulldogs, and Melbourne's Jacob Van Rooyen will round off the half forward line. At the full forward line, we have Geelong's Shannon Neal, Gold Coast's Ben King, and finally, last but not least, the 18th man on the field, Sydney Swans, Joel Armati. Along the bench, my defender is Tommy McCartan of the Sydney Swans. My ruck, Max Gone. How fantastic was he? Was the old man ruck? Absolutely love it. My midfielder is Sam Durham of the Essendon Bombers. My forward is Nick Watson, and starting this year because they added a fifth sub, so I thought you want to know what the heck? I'm gonna add a fifth member to my bench for my team of the week. So we will call that the utility player. So any player can be a utility. This week's utility is Adelaide's Isaac Cummings. So that is it for the team of the week. Kyle, really quick thoughts. Like I said, unfortunately, for some weird reason, I did not write down my central midfield. I apologize to those that were there. So, Kyle, your thoughts on this team of the week?
I think it's pretty good list right there. I will say that, going forward, obviously that's going to change week to
Yeah.
week. But I think you summed up perfectly first conversation when you said that, or actually, I think it was the beginning of this podcast when you said that Christian Petrarca probably is already racking in the Brownlow votes.
Mhm.
So, like I said, good 2 weeks for the Suns.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And then we will end the podcast as per usual, looking ahead to round two, and we'll do tips. I know it's still early in the week. I know the injury report's still to come out, a few things, but you gotta have a little fun to end the podcast. So Kyle, will start off Thursday night footy. MCG sees a wounded Sydney Swans coming into town to play the Hawthorn Hawks. So I gotta ask, sir, who do you like in this one?
That's tough. I'm going to go with the Swans. I think they've got enough strong pieces. Obviously, Hawthorne had a really good game as well. I think this is probably the most intriguing matchup for week two. But I don't know. I have a feeling that the Swans are going to go in there and probably pull off a fairly narrow victory over Hawthorn.
This one's gonna be a fun one because this will test whether has Dean Cox been able to mold this group to the point where they can take. Though they will not have Errol Goulden and most likely no Isaac Heaney, can some of these other players step up? We've seen Justin McInerney play really, really well. We've seen Angus Sheldrick go through the midfield, but we see Chad Warner go back through the center midfield, though this year he's been playing a lot of forward. So a lot of different moving pieces for Sydney on this. I'm gonna tip Hawthorn. It's a road game. It's a short turnaround. No Isaac Keeney, no Errol Goulden. That's a combination for a little bit of disaster. You have a Hawks team that play really, really well on a big ground that is the MCG. This for me, this is a scary recipe for disaster for Sydney on this one. I'm gonna tip the Hawks in this one, but I'm gonna cross my fingers that I'm wrong on this one. Like many people that listen to the podcast know, sometimes I will tip against the Sydney, so it's a no lose situation. I either get the tip right or my team wins. So I got to have a little bit of fun with that. This is probably the game of the round for me personally. Adelaide Oval is going to be rocking as the Crows host a red hot Western Bulldogs in Adelaide, South Australia. Have fun with this one. I'm going to tip the Crows in this one. Home cooking. Doggies have gotten some nice opponents at just the right time. There's a Crows team, a ton of confidence coming off that Collingwood Magpies win. They're playing at home, first game at home. The, the Crows play Adelaide Oval very well. I like the Crows in this one.
I like the Crows as well. I think a lot of the Victorian teams, they get so used to kind of playing in Victorious, and some of the other teams play there. And when they have to travel, I think there's a lot of times a little bit of sore legs, a little bit of. I just think that road games affect Victorian teams a little bit more than other teams on the road throughout the comp. And I think Adelaide's just one of those teams this year. Western Bulldogs had a great round one, don't get me wrong, but I just think Adelaide is going to overpower them, especially at home.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. The biggest thing is can the Western Bulldogs defense handle the three-headed monster that is the Hulk, the Riley Thilthorpe, Tex Walker, and Darcy Fogarty. Can they stop that three-headed monster? Because right now they haven't had to deal with a lot of supersized forward lines. Only had two this last one. Jake Stringer plays more like a medium, so I'll have to see how they handle that. And it's going to be the same as it is a undermanned Adelaide Crows defense going up against Sam Darcy, Aaron Naughton, and the absolute nightmare that is Marcus Bontempelli in that midfield with Libba and Bailey Dale going through there. Ed Richards is playing some of his best football. This is going to be a classic game over in South Australia. This could be a fantastic one. We jump to the Saturday slate. Saturday afternoon sees the Richmond Tigers at home at the MCG host our boy Kyle's Gold Coast Suns. I don't think I'm jumping too far off this one. Gold Coast Suns going to get the tip for you for the win.
They will, although I will say I think this is definitely a trap game for them. And I think the
Hmm.
score is going to be a lot closer than you think, especially considering Gold Coast is on the road at the MCG. I think the Suns' attack is going to overpower Richmond's defense, but I think it's going to be a fairly high scoring game. And I think Richmond's going to definitely surprise a lot of people. And I'm also a little bit concerned about Gold Coast being able to hold on to strong leads in the second half. Once again, I think Gold Coast will win this game, but I don't think it's going to be as lopsided as some people might believe.
Yep, you took a few of the things that I was going to say. This screams trap game for me because this Gold Coast team has been pumped up these first two rounds. Okay, been very pumped up. You get a win in opening round, and you go and face West Coast. You get a big win. You got to go from Perth back to Queensland and now down to Victoria. So the travel, I think I agree with you. The travel will test them. This is a scrappy, up and about Richmond Tiger side that plays with a chip on her shoulder and a lot of mongrel. So how does Gold Coast handle a team that's just they're not going to go away. They're just going to continue to pinch and prod. I agree with you. I'm going to tip Gold Coast, but this could be closer than some of the experts think. I think Richmond's in it till late fourth quarter, and then I think the class of Gold Coast list, and the team just a little bit too much for the Tigers, but should be a fun one to start off the Saturday slate. We'll move to the Saturday matinee matchup, an interesting one as we head up to Sydney as the GWS Giants take on St. Kilda. This is an interesting one for me because I think whoever loses this is in trouble because you have two teams that a lot of people were talking about making finals. Two teams coming off loss, and coming off of losses, different categories, but just as devastating. A giant loss to the GWS and a nail-biting loss to a team many people didn't expect to get beat in St. Kilda. Giants, Saints, who do you like in this one?
I think this one is pretty much a coin flip. I'll give the nod to GWS because they're at home, but I really think this one could go either way. It really comes down to is St. Kilda's offseason acquisitions going to live up to the hype, or are they going to continue what we've seen, in the past week or two? So I'm going to lean toward GWS and give them the slight tip, but I think that one could definitely go either way. But
Yeah,
I'll GWS.
yep, no, 100% with you. I agree. I fought with this one. GWS at home. Um, I'm going to tip the Giants in this one. But if I'm St. Kilda, you have to try to get this one. Going 0-3 with everything that's kind of went on over this offseason, you really cannot afford to go 0-3. And I worry that it's on the cards. It'd definitely be interesting to see how it goes. I think the Giants, though undermanned, again, fighting through injury, I think they get it done on home turf. We'll hop out to Optus Stadium for the Saturday night game, one that I think has taken on a whole degree of intrigue for me, as the Fremantle Dockers host the Melbourne Demons out in Optus Stadium, out in Perth. In this one, I don't know. I mean, Melbourne coming off an impressive win, Dockers coming off a debilitating loss to Geelong at home on the road. This one's tough. I'm going to tip the Dockers, but I have very little confidence in this Dockers team right now. And the way Melbourne's going, they can play with a chip on their shoulder because nobody is expecting them to make finals. Nobody is expecting them not to be a bottom six side. So if they can start the season 0-2 with a big win on the road and beating a St. Kilda team that many people expected to potentially make finals, this could be an interesting year. Tipping Dockers, but I'm going to tell you, will not shock me if the D's pull off the win out in Western Australia.
I think this one's going to be the Dockers. I don't think it's going to be that close, though. I think Melbourne still has a few pieces to go before they are going to be in the running for making it to the finals. So I don't know. I'm going to give the Dockers the tip on this one, and I don't think it's going to be super close.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one at Perth. We jump to the Sunday slate where if I'm Port Adelaide, I am thanking my lucky stars because your first home game and you get an absolute cupcake as Port Adelaide take on Essendon. I'm sorry, Bomber supporters, but I just have to be honest with you. I think this is Port and this is Port big unless Essendon finds a way to figure out how to not play the way they've been playing, and I just don't see it. I think Port Adelaide win this one big.
I think Port Adelaide wins it as well. I think the real question is, are they going to win big or win small? And I don't think that's really up for Port Adelaide to decide. I think it's Essendon. I mean, are they going to get their ducks in a row and come out there ready to fight, or are they going to roll over and just let Port Adelaide hand it to them?
It's going to be interesting. And then we will end this particular round again. The first part of the buys because of round zero rear its ugly head is only 7 games this particular round as the usual battle for 17th place commences as the West Coast Eagles host the North Melbourne Kangaroos out at Optus Stadium. The Kangaroos looked impressive. The Eagles didn't. So this one's pretty easy for me. I think North win this one, and I think North really starts to show, potentially starts to maybe make that push towards picking up and potentially moving themselves up the ladder.
Well, as a Cincinnatian, I know what it's like to root for bad teams, and just like if I was a gambling man, I'd never put my money on the Bengals, Reds, reps in Cincinnati. I'm not going to put my money on North Melbourne. I think West Coast, they're at home. I think they've had a bad first round, but I haven't seen enough out of North Melbourne to believe they're going to go on the road and beat West Coast. So I guess I think the only one of this round, I'm gonna go with West Coast. I'm gonna go against your tip. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I see more green shoots for North than I do for West Coast on that one. So, and then the four teams that have a chance to kick their feet up on the couch over the weekends is the Brisbane Lions, Collingwood Magpies, Carlton Blues, and Geelong Cats, all having a seat on the couch for this particular round. So, well, Kyle, that is it. That is all of the games tips. We've went through round one. We've previewed and gotten ready for round two. I cannot wait. As per usual, sir, I always like to end it is that I know, as we discussed off mic, that you have since graduated from the UC Cincinnati So congratulations to you, sir.
thank
I
you.
know you are connected with with the Cincinnati Dockers, as it is. So season is getting closer and closer to kind of kicking off. Have you guys started training? And if not, when does training get started for your beloved Dockers?
Sure. Training gets started April the 1st, although we have gotten a couple of kick rounds in March. UC also started up like late February. They have a inter squad scrimmage, I believe, in late March. They actually asked me if I could umpire it, so I might get my first chance to umpire. Just partly why I asked about that rule earlier on the podcast to make sure, because otherwise you
Gotcha.
have like 20 something college kids screaming at me about a rule they don't even understand. So
Well,
that's
I don't think the USAFL does it. So I'd try. I would reach out to the USAFL a little bit, get some of the rules because at least over here, play the USAFL rules more than the AFL rules because they can get quite confusing with some of them. So
yeah.
just just a heads up, just eliminate that particular thing from your list of headaches.
No, that's smart. We're also really working on, expanding and growing the Dockers. My goal is within a few years for the Dockers to really be, I wouldn't say a powerhouse in the USAFL, but a legitimate team that plays game after game, weekend after weekend. Working on recruitment. Bought a bunch of these T-shirts. It's got the QR code for the link tree on the back. Also, I got a couple of magnets for my car, so when I drive around, people see Cincinnati Dockers. They hopefully scan the link tree. I went and got a burger at Swenson's last night, and even the girl thought it was like a business I worked at. She's like, "Oh, what's that business you have? Cincinnati Dockers." I'm like, "It's a sports team, Australian football." And she was like, "Huh?" And then she just kind of went in to make someone's fries. But nevertheless, getting the word out there, and yeah, it's a great sport. I think I've always said this across the board. When I was helping out UC, I help out Cincinnati Dockers. I always say the same thing: sport sells itself. You just have to get the word of mouth out there and
Yep.
have people learn what it is and have an opportunity to try it. And after that point, they usually stick with it.
Yep, nope, 100% with you on that one. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this particular episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, if you like what you are listening to, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, again, reach out to me and we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.